Kentucky men's basketball hosted their pro day. We will have another video on the channel where we talk about like more so takeaways from the pro day, what we were able to see, and what I think is a very cool event that I think a lot of schools should do. Now, I know other schools do this and host these pro day situations, but I do think this is a great thing for, you know, one, it's a great recruiting tool. I think that they have this pro day thing. Like they had NBA scouts galore, NBA teams, management, front office members be able to come out and see them in this setting. Media comes out as well. They also stream this on SEC Network Plus, I believe. So it's a great thing to, I think, digest basketball and a great tool for Kentucky to use in this one. But what I want to talk about more specifically with this one is that there was a interview, I believe it was with KSR. I want to say it is Tyler Thompson who had an interview with Mark Pope. Shout out to Tyler Thompson of KSR. And she asked Mark Pope kind of about his thoughts about this team. And Mark Pope had a great quote where he said he's been trying to stack teams against each other in practice, basically like blue and white, but and predict the outcomes. But it's proved difficult because of this team's depth and competitive spirit. So basically, this Kentucky team is so deep, so loaded that he has tried to stack teams for practices and things like that, but he just can't do it. What do you take from this, Dion?
It's I love Mark Pope. I do want to say that. Like I love Mark Pope. L's down. You know what I mean? Like I love what he does. Some of his comments, and this happened to me last year too, like the Amari Williams stuff, they get to me. But he winds up proving me wrong, though, time and time again. He proved me wrong about Amari Williams, Otega Owe, um, even Kirk Creaser to an extent, although, like, as a West Virginia fan, I don't fully want to admit that one, but it is true. And he's going to continue to prove me wrong. And part of the reason he keeps proving me wrong is what he says on paper makes no sense. But it's true. And this makes no sense because I feel like I can name five guys that would dominate a practice. But it's probably true that he can't figure it out. And it's part of the reason it's probably true is kind of like the Jakari Harris video we did about him just dropping 30 on Braden, allegedly. Is that like he probably can't figure out who of the 5 to 10 guys is going to be like locked into practice on that specific day, too, right? Like, because if you're practicing every day for 3, 4 months, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. And I would say part of it is he probably also doesn't know who's having a good day or a bad day in that moment. And my five names, maybe that's one of their bad days. Or maybe it's like a Otega situation where he's not practicing that day. Because in theory, I could name a million rosters with Otega you would think would beat the other team by 20, but maybe Otega's not out there. Maybe Big Jelly wasn't practicing that day or so on and so forth. So it's probably true, but it sounds crazy.
Big Jelly's crazy, by the way. Are we actually going with that
Yeah,
for Yelovich?
Big Jelly.
Big Jelly.
Kind of like Jimmy Jam, man.
I respect my guy Jimmy Jam. I wonder if he was at the pro day. I want his takeaways for what it's worth. Shout out to him and Miss Lay. But look, I think that for the question marks you have about Kentucky, and I think we brought up some. I think the one thing that we got to give them credit for is that, yeah, we can have arguments about what you think about the players who that create the depth, but this team has depth. Like Malachi Moreno is a McDonald's All American on the bench. Jasper Johnson is a McDonald's All American on the bench. Even Brandon Garrison was a McDonald's All American, and he's on the bench for this team. So it's just like there is a lot of talent on this team. It probably is tough to stack the teams. I think that, having a team that is competitive, wants to compete on a day-to-day basis is something that makes teams better, right? You don't want guys that are just bowing down to the starters. You want guys that want to come in there and rip the starters' heads off and get them, earn their stripes, get their spots, and solidify their role. So I do think that it is hard, I guess, for Mark Pope in this situation to stack certain teams because of his team's depth. Am I allowed to play both sides of the coin here, though?
Absolutely.
All right, so flip side correlation here. I'm always of the belief that if you can't identify your five best players, is it fair to say that sometimes that's not a good thing?
Dion, how's your job going?
Beginning of the school year, everything's like a little up and down. One of the biggest issues we've had is we can't find any uniforms for our girls' sports teams.
Mm, that's a difficult thing to find a solution for. I know damn well all about that because I got a daughter that just turned 2. She's into sports and she's already outgrowing every little piece of sports apparel she had. Thankfully, I know Clara Kate Creations. Clara Kate Creations was started by a former high school teacher who quit because it wasn't cost effective to send new twins and a 2-year-old to daycare. She found it easier to make girls' sports apparel than finding it to buy. And I am so thankful that she exists because if we have an old shirt of Murph's that she's outgrown, we can send it in and she takes that piece of apparel that means something and upcycles it into an outfit that Murphy can now wear as she grows up. She makes great stuff. It's honestly kind of like your fullback's wife, Kyle Juszczyk. Is that how you say it? She does that, but honestly, I think Clara Kate's coming for Mrs. Juszczyk's job.
I love that. I'm a big Juice guy, love his wife, love Claire Kate even more than both of them, though.
You can send in your own custom ideas and she will come up with a design. She's just the best. Look up Clara Kate Creations on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and more.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. But FC, on the other flip side of the correlation,
Bars.
I think it's just it's a special word, by the way. I don't know how you came up with that, but it's very special.
Yeah.
I think in this case, it's just like they have a lot of injuries, and to be quite frank, their best player hasn't like been practicing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is one part that maybe we kind of left out here. It's probably easier to stack if we are able to scrimmage with Otega Owe and Jaden Quaintance at the same.
That's what I was saying. Like if on paper, it's like Jelon Lowe, Aberdeen, Ortega, JQ, Moreno. Yeah, the other side's food. Two of those five players just aren't practicing right now.
Right. So look, I think that the depth of this Kentucky team, it's gonna be. I guess I'll ask this: how much do you think that depth actually factors in? Because it's one thing to have it, it's
Mhm.
also another thing to like utilize it. Because yes, you want to make sure that you know the bench and the depth is able to add to your team, but also flip side correlation. If if bench and role guys are playing,
Right.
is that at the expense of my guys that are hooping in that starting five? Because I don't want Otega Owe's minutes cut. In a perfect world, I don't want Jalen Lowe or Jaden Quaintance minutes cut. Now, Jaden Quaintance a little differently. Got to make sure you're smart with the coming back from an injury. But to
Right.
this point, like I do think that depth can sometimes be used as like this ultimate positive when it is a positive. Don't get me wrong, but I think you want to be in a spot where you're getting the most out of your starters and you don't have to lean on the depth as much, right?
I think this is a two things can be true situation.
Mm,
And I want to say I think two things can be true because I think Kentucky's built as perfect of a roster as you can. In college basketball, not named Purdue. Um, and that's why G and I did early Final Four a few days ago, and I had Kentucky in my Final Four. For this reason, their depth is going to get them to March Madness extremely rested and ready to go. I don't think you need depth when it in March Madness. In a 6 game sample size, I want my five best players on the court 30 to 35 minutes straight up, but get me to that point to where I can run them a little bit. You know what I mean? To where they can play two very tough, intense, highly competitive games a week at 35 minutes, or if you're like an Ortega, maybe 40 minutes, and he's like fresh from start to finish. And I think you need the depth to get you to that point. But I don't think you need it necessarily in March Madness. That's why I like the way they built this roster. We could talk about how they go 10, 11 deep, but if you look at it, they do go 10, 11 deep. There's 8 guys that are a lot better than everybody else on this roster, too. And I think it's very easy to identify who those 8 or 9 guys are. And that's going to help them come March Madness. And Mark Pope has built, like I said, in my opinion, as perfect of a roster as you can.
yeah, I think so too. And I'm very excited to watch this Kentucky team. Obviously, we have a really big exhibition game coming up for them where I think we're going to see what they're about and see what they look like in that setting. But I do think that when we just did a video for Purdue talking about how their margin for error is a little bit increased given the depth that they have. Kentucky is another team that if we were doing the whole like their margin for error is greater. Kentucky would be in that fold because they do have some talented people on this team, and I think some of those things were displayed on the pro day. And I also think that Mark Pope just blatantly said just to us just now that it's hard to stack these teams given the depth of what it is. But we'll have another video on the channel with some more pro day takeaways, so be sure to check that out. And like I said, shout out to KSR and Tyler Thompson for this quote in her interview with Mark Pope.